Awesome. I'll go ahead and get started. And we'll see. We can let people in as they join. But welcome to the 2024 Wrapped session for Flint. Inspired by Spotify, we kind of wanted to recount the past 12 months and show you all like how Flint has changed basically. And then at the end, we'll also have time to do some brainstorming together with how Flint can become even better in the future. Yeah, and in terms of what we'll cover today, so I'll go through all of the major updates that have happened to Flint. Not an exhaustive list, but just trying to show you all the breadth of things that we've been focusing on as a team. And then after that, we'll have some time to, we actually have some questions for you all, and we want to pick your brains for how best AI can be used in the classroom. But yeah, in general, this recording will be available later. So if you want to take notes, sure. If not, that's okay. And also questions are always welcome. So feel free to interrupt me at any point. We've also got a pretty small group today. So yeah, we want to make this as engaging for you all as possible. But yeah, in terms of major updates, I'll go through the like month by month almost of what we've been doing, and then also show some examples of how these new features have been being used. But the general idea is it's been a really busy year for everyone, for us, for teachers, and really the partnerships that we formed with educators has only helped Flint grow. So any of the features that I show that have this little fire emoji next to them, they're ones that were directly suggested by Flint teachers. And yeah, I know it's in the product, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, so to start off, we first started with this idea of AI tutoring, right? You might have heard a lot about it recently, but having AI act as a tutor beyond just like an individual assignment, that was something that we were doing early last spring. And then we also wanted to create groups in Flint. For context, we used to just have like a list of activities, and it was kind of unwieldy. And the groups was actually suggested by this one Spanish teacher who had made hundreds of assignments. And he was like, I am just keeping all of the links in a Google Doc so I can organize them. So then we brought that ability to organize these different AI activities into Flint. But yeah, and then in spring, we also kind of focused on math specifically. So we added math computation support in April, and also wanted to do some more like evidence-based feedback for the teachers. So really leveraging AI not just for like the student interaction, but also helping teachers better understand how their students are doing. Yeah, so that's what you'll see in Flint with these parts of like areas of improvement and strengths. You can click on the colored portions to show the student response that gave rise to that insight from the AI. And we also added grade and proficiency level selectors. So this was also something requested directly from like lower and middle school teachers and also world language teachers, because AI tends to be very wordy and complicated. So having that selector available really helped to level the type of response that students would be getting from the AI. Yeah, and then in May, we also added graphing to Flint, so continuing on our expedition of making math useful. But yeah, we also added a helpfulness slider into Flint. We got a lot of feedback that Flint was being almost too nice and too helpful. As we were kind of touching on earlier, AI on its own, if you go ask it a question, it'll just give you an answer. And Flint's focus is how can we get AI to be more, I guess, increase the struggle of students and really give them guidance when it's helpful to them, but not give them too much guidance where they can just shut their brain off. So yeah, we've added this helpfulness slider in Flint that helps you better control that. But on the math aspect of things, let me show, sorry, wrong button. I'll show you an example of a template that a teacher created. This is an interactive graph explorer. And so part of what graphing and math support enabled was something like this, where the teacher created this activity for students to go and ask about various graphs and how they look. So here it asked me about the absolute value function, and then I said, oh, it's like a V, right? And Flint was able to verify that it is like that. It explained what it looks like in English, and then it also showed me an example here. So yeah, it was really cool to start seeing this as a way to make math support in Flint more visual as well. Yeah, and then we added image recognition into Flint, and also the ability to upload a lot more content. So here's an example of actually one of our teammates trying out Flint's image recognition. So he like drew a parabola. He could take a picture with his webcam and send it to Flint. And then here Flint says, I see you've shared a fun creative photo. It's cute how you made the parabola look like a smile. It tends to be pretty friendly in that way. But yeah, then it was able to break down like why a parabola looks like this, and it guided him to finding the equation for the parabola as well. So then he took another photo with the equation written down, and then it was able to walk through like what the different parts of the equation mean for him, and also graph him an example here. Yeah, so that's like one of the use cases for image analysis. But I'll also show this one. It's actually a world language template that I found where teachers were uploading these images for students to analyze in French. And yeah, I thought that was just really cool, like also bringing the visual aspect into teaching world languages. And we've seen this like activity of describe what you're seeing in a different language to be quite popular also. Yeah, so after the image recognition, we also added image generation. And yeah, so this was pretty cool. We saw some examples. One that I made actually that I thought was really fun. It was also inspired by a teacher, but having the Oregon Trail be playable in Flint. So with this activity, students could like say which action they wanted to take, and then Flint would create an image to go along with it. So like here, giving the wagon party members medicine, and then yeah, sharing food as well. So this sort of like interactivity with image generation was a cool use case that we wanted to enable. But yeah, beyond that, we also wanted to give teachers the ability to add their own feedback into Flint and also flag any inappropriate use of AI or concerning use of AI in a way. Anything from Sohan saying that he wants to bully AI until it cries to more serious things like self-harm and other violence and harassment aspects. All of that is like flagged for admin. So yeah, we wanted to make sure that that stuff was brought to the surface. And halfway through the year, we introduced a new interface. We had gotten a lot of feedback that the one before had almost too much information. It was a little overwhelming, so we wanted to simplify it a lot. And we also introduced templates to Flint, which I've shown you some examples of. But now there's an entire library that other teachers and you yourself can add to, and just make sharing these activities that are created in Flint more easy. And then earlier this school year, we leaned into Flint being helpful for research. So we were getting a lot of questions around how do we know where it's getting its information? Like, how can we help students verify what Flint is saying to them? So now Flint has these sorts of in-text citations where when Flint pulls from a source, it can cite where that's coming from, and then it'll also link directly to that source so students can verify it. And it also has access to the web now, so it can help students with a research process. And here's an example of a template that does this, where the teacher created a scientific paper analyst to help students understand the research methods used in various scientific papers. So the students were able to share with Flint a link to a paper that they've been looking at, and then Flint could then help them understand what's not only in that paper, but also additional context around that topic, because it could do further research for the students and show it show them where it's getting that information also. Yeah, and more generically, or not generically, I guess, more from the admin side, we added SIS and LMS integration as well to make rostering easier. Yeah, and then wanting to make Flint easier for teachers to use, we added these shortcuts. So if you log into Flint, you'll see like these options to do a quiz, a debate, language speaking practice, problem solving practice. We brought a lot of the most common use cases that we've heard for Flint to the forefront like this, so that you can just have Flint ask you a couple questions, you give it the context, and it'll automatically generate an activity for you to try. Yeah, and we also added starter prompts. So if you try any of the, if you create a Flint activity, it'll start off with some responses. And that was really an insight that we got from teachers and administrators of how, I mean, even for adults, it's like hard to know exactly how to ask a good question to AI. And even more so for students, like how can we teach them to ask good questions for AI and also generally in life? So we wanted to model that sort of behavior for students through starter prompts. Yeah, and then I know I just told you that we renamed the assignments to activities, or to tutors, but then we renamed tutors to activities. I think the main theme here is that everyone's trying to figure out where AI fits into the educational landscape. And right now we're seeing a lot of promise in focusing the experience on the student and really how AI can personalize learning for them. And this might be like a tutor, but this might be like the AI is pretending to be a student who doesn't understand, and then your real student has to like explain it to them. But it could also be that it's a debate partner or a research partner. So it might not be just a tutor, and that's why we are now calling them Flint activities. But yeah, beyond that, we also added a easier way to see student responses. It'll now appear in a table for you, and you can adjust the speaking rate as well of Flint activities, which we saw both world language teachers and lower school teachers really excited about. Yeah, okay, last one, I promise. So we switched Flint from GPT-4 Omni to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. That's okay if that doesn't mean anything to you, but essentially we saw a different large language model that was performing a lot better, and it also like benchmark tested a lot better. And so we tried it out and saw it also did better in Flint, so we added it to Flint. And then we also added IB levels. The IB schools were really excited about this, and they were pestering us for a little bit on incorporating that into Flint as well. And yeah, and now Flint can also auto-generate citations in like APA, MLA, Chicago format. We saw a lot of teachers really leaning into if students are using AI in their projects, in their writing, they need to cite it. So we wanted to make that readily available. Yeah, so I just threw a lot at you all. Are there any questions? The next section will be like a brainstorming session together. So yeah, good time to pause for questions. Yeah, Santiago?
Hi, I've been using it for a little bit, like a month or so. I have a question. Who can see the sessions that the students, like, can everybody in the group see everybody's sessions? Is it just the teacher? Is there a way to modify that?
Yeah, so by default, it's just the teacher. So whoever created that activity, they can see all of the sessions that are done with that activity. The school administrator can also see it too, but only if they like proactively look for it, I guess. But the students can't see each other's sessions.
So is it the teacher or the person that creates the activity? Because I know that students can also create activities within a group.
Yeah, it's the person who creates the activity.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Ibrahim?
Yes, I'm a beginner to this one and I never use it. I want to know, do you have any material to help me start something like this? How to start, like 101.
Yeah. We actually have a getting started guide.
Could you send it to me as an email so I can see it, please, if you don't mind?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I think Sohan just sent it in the chat, but I can also email it over to
Okay,
you.
let me email you my email.
Sounds good. Awesome. Yeah, Karen, do you have a question?
I do. Can you talk a little bit more about the LLMs that you're using? So I want to make sure I have a lot of teachers who are set on, oh, we want a ChatGPT backbone versus, and they don't understand the different models. And so can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So right now the base model in Flint that all of like the conversation and reasoning is built on is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It's created by this company called Anthropic. They're like one of the big competitors to OpenAI who creates ChatGPT. From what we've seen, the two companies are kind of neck and neck with creating their two models, but the, I guess, philosophy behind their models is kind of different. So the main reason that we switched actually was that Claude is a lot more clear and less verbose, whereas OpenAI is like more just about like being super helpful, I would say. So in a teaching setting, Claude made more sense. It followed the rules that we set better, and it was just as smart as ChatGPT. Um, yeah, I feel like I can like continue talking about this for a bit. So is there any like specific clarifications that I can help with?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, the teachers rely on us to be able to say, hey, this is why we're not using ChatGPT and vice versa, because that's the big buzzword they hear. And
Yeah.
so if something isn't using it, it's, well, why? so that I think helps. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
If I may, but like the other thing that you guys provide is you provide extra training on top of the base model, right? So like you guys do specialized training for a classroom / educational setting that where whether like ChatGPT or Sonnet or all the other companies build general AIs. This is more focused on education.
Yes, exactly. So we give Flint like more context essentially. So it has like the access to Claude, which is super powerful in a lot of different settings. But because it's coming through Flint, it knows like, hey, this is like a teaching tool that's using that teachers are going to give you rules and you should follow these to help students in an objective that the teacher sets. And so that's why like within the Flint settings, you can change how like the AI is going to behave, how it's going to grade and assess the student. Yeah, and all of that is like providing that additional layer of context. And that's also why if you like go into Flint and just like, or if students especially go into Flint and just ask it to do something for them, like, hey, can you write this essay? It knows that it's not supposed to do that for them. So it'll respond like, hey, like I can't write this essay for you, but I can help you brainstorm an outline, or like we can figure out together like how it should be structured. So it has that mentality almost of being a teacher or a tutor to the student. Yeah. Really good questions, everyone. All right. Yeah, feel free to keep asking questions, of course. But this next section, actually, I'm going to lead you into a brainstorming session together. Yeah, we started this call with me sharing about how like so much of what we've done this year has been inspired by teachers. So we also wanted to give you all the opportunity to give us some more feedback, basically, in this call and actively think about how Flint can evolve in the coming years. So I'm going to put this QR code on the screen. I'll also find a link to this and share it with you all. But this is a tool called Mentimeter. It's kind of like a live polling sort of solution. Yeah, if you all join there, then we can like go through some of the questions that are being posed. Let me reshare my screen so I can show you all what that is. Okay, can you all see the question? The QR code is also right there. But yeah, I wanted to start off with like a really easy question, also to make sure that everyone can like get logged on here. But which feature excited you the most? And if you have used it in your class, which one, or how have you used it basically? Yeah, so creating focus assignments for content review. Very nice. Also, feel free to speak up if you want to elaborate on any of your responses here.
Just for me, sorry, because I'm on my cell phone at the moment. It was the change from tutor to activities that actually was a huge impact for my teachers, because when it was tutors, they got stuck in that terminology, and could not break out what different activities and things that they can do. They were just so focused on the word tutor. So changing it to activities really opened it up a lot for my teachers.
That's great. Yeah. Are there any I guess specific examples of new use cases that they realized?
I think for my school, a lot of it was doing some analytical thinking, but my middle school has really taken off. My middle school science has really taken off with it. Doing some identification skills where they would take a picture of something and basically use Flint to help describe what it is. And so they would do a basic description, and Flint would try and guess what the object was, and then they'd show the picture and ask Flint, okay, how would you better have described this using scientific methods and whatnot. It was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. So seems like we have some language teachers on the call with giving students speaking practice, and then also slowing down the speed was helpful. That's good to hear. Yeah, making the adjustments so that the AI guides but does not give students the answers. Being able to organize activities in groups, separate by courses or topics. Great. Yeah, for the submitting longer texts, sorry, I'm gonna pick on you, but I guess could you give us some more context on what you were trying to accomplish with the students? If you want.
That was about longer text. Initially, it was almost like the longest text you could insert into Flint was like a brief article. You know what I mean? And so for English teachers, being able to submit like a short novel or like a play, like a full literary text, that opened up some possibilities that I didn't feel like Flint had before, just because of the word limit.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Especially if you want Flint to like help students analyze specific things in the text, then you would want it to have that context on what it is that students are reading for sure.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you all. I will move on to the next question. Hopefully, let me know. This is my first time using Mentimeter also, so let me know if it doesn't appear on your screen. But basically wanted to pick your brains on what features would be useful, especially for your specific subject. Yeah, like speaking speed was one of the ones that we heard specifically from world language. So yeah, if there's anything that you all think of, feel free to send it over here. Trying to think of other examples that I've heard recently.
I think one I can share is like we added the MLA APA Chicago style citations that you mentioned earlier, Lulu. I think like librarians at schools that we're working with, that was like a massive feature request from them for like almost a year of like, how do we cite AI? We're getting teachers coming to us saying like, we don't know how to tell our kids to cite it. So yeah, what we found is like, as we develop the product, there's more niche feature requests like that are like particularly helpful depending on what subject you teach, or even like what role you have in a school, like being a librarian.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, awesome. So comments and corrections from the teacher within submitted or started sessions. Okay. Oh, so actually, could you elaborate a bit more on that? Are you like wanting to comment on what the AI is telling them, or just generally?
Yeah, that's me. So like Sohan, you probably saw this before when I submitted it, but it's basically like sometimes the AI is either not extremely clear or makes mistakes here and there, and the students comes out with an idea of like, oh, Flint told me yada yada, right?
Mm.
But just being able to like make a comment on a response from Flint or from the student, right? Like when the teacher goes over a session, like just clicking on it or second click on it and add a something that brings it to the attention, like, oh, this is not right, or in class we use a different kind of notation, or something like that brings attention to like, yeah, I know you saw this, but we do it here a little bit different, or this is really important, I want you to like remember this when we go on to the next chapter or on the test or whatever.
Mm.
I like that suggestion. If I could jump in, Lulu, I'm going to steal the screen share a little bit.
Yeah.
Santiago, we have something very simple for that right now. It doesn't go far enough, but I still wanted to highlight it for you in case it could be something you could use as a starting point. And then I agree that we could do a lot more to like give you space as a teacher to leave feedback. So I'm on like an example student session now. I'm viewing it as a teacher so I can see the work the student's done. Up at the top, you can technically change the grade that the AI suggests for the student, and then it'll be like, hey, are you sure? We also have this teacher feedback column. Unfortunately, this is for the whole session, so you can't like leave a response here saying like, hey, in this case, hey, Sohan, you got this wrong. But you could say something like, oh, like the AI was pretty harsh with you, but I disagree with the feedback. Here's what I think about how you did. So we have this kind of generic kind of teacher feedback box per session. So I would use that as a starting point, and then over time we may add the ability to like leave comments on like specific messages.
Yeah, and another thing that I've used kind of like as a band-aid is also like you guys also let me like quote or copy a message, so like I can copy it and then send an email and right, but then you have to change platforms, and it's not terrible, but it makes it a little bit more cumbersome.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, like having that happen in the platform. We've also seen teachers like download it as a PDF by clicking print, go to OneNote, put it in OneNote. But yeah, we ideally want that happening in the platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely appreciate that feedback.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, a list of specific ways Flint could be used for each subject area to help teachers see opportunities. Yeah, that's great. I think I think your suggestion of a list is like super clear. We have some other examples that are kind of getting at that, I think. So let me show you all the templates page just in case people haven't seen it yet. But essentially within the Flint platform, there's this templates button in the bottom left. And from there, you'll be brought to this page where there's like this giant list of different templates that have been used. Oh, sorry, giant list, there we go. And you can sort between different popular subjects here. So like if I click on world language, it would show me all of the different world language templates that have been proactively published by teachers. Yeah, so that's one place where we've been pointing teachers for inspiration. It's not exactly like a list of use cases, but it is kind of neat that they can like click on these and readily use these templates and copy them over to their own workspaces. Yeah, and then another thing that we have on our website, sorry, I keep clicking the wrong button. On our website are use cases pages also based on the different subjects. So there's this like overall one with all of the ones that our team has written about that you can filter for. But within each of these examples, we've written about like the teacher's teaching goals, how they set up the activity, and then what the student experience looked like. But yeah, also within these subject-specific pages, like if I clicked on English language arts, we kind of try and hint at like some of the various use cases here. So like AI writing feedback, for example, and then like how the teacher could set this up with entering the grade level and writing prompt, choosing the focus of the feedback, and then letting the students ask questions about their writing. Yeah, so this is like us trying to show some examples. We've also like linked some templates here, but yeah, it would be cool to have a list somewhere. Maybe especially if we could make that crowdsourced and get all of the cool ideas that teachers are trying out and put that all in one place.
Quick question. What was the drop-down menu that you clicked on initially? Was it resources?
Oh, under use cases.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, let me reshare the Mentimeter. Oh yeah, Santiago, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, but I think Karen hadn't raised earlier.
Okay.
Before me.
That might have been for the previous question.
Oh, got it.
Sorry,
So,
that
yes.
was, yeah, that was my bad. I'm like futzing around. Ignore me. Sorry.
All good.
I did have another. I guess this is a question slash suggestion. So earlier you guys mentioned that creators can see all sessions. If I'm teaching in a team, is it possible for me to give another teacher in the same group like creator powers so that like they could also see the sessions or comments or whatever it is that we can do?
Yeah. So apologies for that piece. Let me show you what this might look like. So let's say I made this decimal division game show, and I wanted to share it with Sohan maybe and make sure that he could also see and edit that activity. So then under share activity in the top right here, I could add him as a owner. So his name is already here, but if you wanted to like search for a fellow teacher, or even I guess if you're working with a student, you can search for someone's name, and then here you can set them as an owner of that activity. Yeah, and this will give him access to seeing all of the sessions, and then also access to the activity settings so that he can go in and make any changes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, one way we've seen teachers use that is like you can make an activity, share it with a colleague. They can now see what you've done. And in the top right, there's that duplicate activity button. So then they can also make a copy and start using it with their students.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess also if you share a group with somebody else as an owner, then that grandfathers into all activities inside that group. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll show everyone what that looks like very briefly. But yeah, so like if I wanted to add Sohan as a co-teacher for this AP biology course, then I would click share group here, and then I could, oh, he's already an owner, but yeah, that's what it looks like basically. Great, awesome. Yeah, I have like a couple more questions, so I'll move on to the next one. But this one was about how can AI be used to better engage students? So like some of the features that we added, like the image recognition, that was almost a lot for engagement purposes. But also like text to speech and speech to text. So the ability to let students actually like talk to the AI and for it to talk back to them. We've seen that be helpful for engagement as well. So I guess any ideas around even like how you've engaged students through like using Flint or in general? I feel like it's a tough thing to do, but if anyone, you all know how to do it best. Yeah, Marie?
Yeah, actually, what I've done with my students, I teach business courses, and they do kind of role of so they basically had a conversation with the business owner. The topic was, I think it was Porter's analysis. They had to analyze the industry, like attractiveness of the industry. And this business owner is basically like about to, set up a business, enter this industry, right? And they talk to the owner about the industry, and they have the conversation, kind of like, sort of fictitious character, right? Fictitious business owner. And they had to show understanding of various concepts throughout the conversation. And I mark the conversations.
Okay. Yeah. So like allowing the students to have that sort of role play almost.
Like a role play. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I've done debates with them as well, where I have debates in my classes. Students that were absent on the day of the summative debate, that they debated AI on the particular topic. So.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah, one kind of example I've heard from a teacher who unfortunately isn't here today is they were teaching a class where typically it's like a community service oriented class. So the students, as a final part of a project, have to like cold call nonprofits and like learn about them or do some sort of community work with them. And this was a class for like 7th or 8th graders. So he mentioned that like historically a challenge they've had is like students have some anxiety around cold calling, and it's like a really hard thing to teach because you're doing it with a friend. It's like doesn't feel as like real or as high stakes. So what he did is he set up a fully verbal conversation in Flint and told the AI to act as like the CEO of a nonprofit. And then he gave it the cold calling script that the students should follow. So the students basically have to cold call the Flint, AI's nonprofit CEO, and it would give them feedback on whether or not, like at the end of the conversation, if they did a good job of following the script or not. So any of those sort of role play style conversations, whether it's like a language speaking conversation or something where you're mentioning like a debate, I think are like great ways to use AI where like the student to student interaction might not be like as engaging or even like as difficult or rigorous.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. I think recently I also heard an example, I guess more from like the lesson planning side of things. But a teacher was using Flint to introduce a unit, and she just opened it up for students to ask any questions about the unit that they were about to do. And so through seeing like the questions that the students were asking, which topics they were lingering on more, she could then plan her lesson around what the students were already naturally interested in. And she said, like, typically that unit was one that was really tough for students because there's so much content to cover. But they were a lot more engaged, and they also did better on the tests afterwards. So that was really cool to see. But yeah, so fast feedback and quick creation of interactables. Makes sense. And I think this next one is also kind of related where, the controlling the engagement of Flint. When the AI gives answers to the students want to force it to give them the answer instead of thinking or working. Yeah, I guess how has that played out for you? Do you see it like easier to control in a way?
Yeah, this is me making an administrative comment based on how I had a teacher who stopped using Flint because he felt like this was months ago. This was like last school year, but he felt like students were finding the right buttons to push, so to speak, to have Flint just kind of answer it for them, as opposed to them really engaging in thinking for themselves or trying to figure out the answer. And so I'm excited about that feature because I feel like it can go back to teachers who were trying out an earlier version of Flint, saying, hey, the thing that you felt like was a limitation, you can now adjust that, or you can tell it to not be able to do that. So I think that's a huge new feature.
Yeah, the helpfulness level. Yeah, we've seen a lot of teachers excited about that. Also, the switch to Claude also helped with that a lot, since Anthropic's model is like better at following rules essentially. So now if they like put in a very clear rule for the AI, like, hey, don't give any answers or make the students try it 3 times before you give them guidance. Those are some examples that seem to be working a lot better. Yeah. And then activity settings could be adjusted to give more evaluative feedback. Yeah, as they work rather than waiting till the end. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it kind of depends on like how you set up the role of the AI in that sense.
Yeah,
So
I'd say one current limitation with Flint is like once you create an activity, it's not super intuitive to like how to customize it a lot to get it to exactly what you want. So Lulu, I'm gonna steal the screen share again real quick. If I pull up like this example activity, I think I used like the quiz shortcut earlier that Lulu was sharing to kind of set this activity up. Technically, you can go into the activity overview, then the settings, and in this box say like, hey, after every second student message or after every student message, give them feedback on how they're doing to kind of update them. But you would have to kind of go into this box and type that in. We are working on some changes to this overall kind of page here, this activity kind of settings page, to make that a bit more intuitive to do. To the point that you'd be able to ask Clint, like, hey, I noticed that you're doing this thing. Are there different ways you can give feedback? And it'll be able to give you some options there. But as like a stopgap for now, you could go into the settings and try to ask it to do that. So like, hey, can you give feedback mid-session or after every message? So that might be something to try.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. I will share the next question. Okay. Yeah, so next up, we wanted to, this is kind of related, but how do you think Flint itself could be more interactive? Like, are there like different ways that you think AI could engage students in? Like, are there new sorts of activities that you want to create? Yeah, I think one of the themes that I'm starting to see is like different levels of AI integration almost into an activity. So there's one school that we're working with where they have an AI policy that's got 7 tiers to it. And like the most basic tier is like AI as like collaborative helper kind of thing. So it's just like giving students additional information, maybe like as a research partner. But then it goes all the way up to like transformation, where through using Flint, teachers can really transform how the entire like lesson might be or how the entire activity is. So I think like a role play kind of might fit into that, since like the example earlier of like having students interview small business owners, or yeah, having students do something that they weren't able to do before. Yeah, so if there's any ideas around that, that'd be really cool to hear about.
One thing that might help, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like those manipulates on like Wolfram language or Mathematica, where you can build, like where Flint could probably like put out something where the student has to like move sliders or input different numbers and kind of like guess like an idea for like for instance when they're doing, I don't know, like where is the slope of the tangent line equal to the average between two different interval points, right? And then the kind of like the line is drawn, but then they can slide the line along the axis to where it's tangent to the curve that they're looking at, or like things like that. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like a mix of interactive and visual learning for that example, at least. Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
Or like where if they're looking at limits, then they're doing 0.1 and 0.001 and 0.00201, and they can see how that's getting a little bit closer. At least this is coming from my math teaching.
What I like about that especially is like we have this view that we've kind of been having as a company more and more over time, is that chat is not like the perfect interface. Like you can get pretty far with chat, and like obviously a lot of Flint is built around chat, but like real learning a lot of times happens visually or on a whiteboard or with like more of like a verbal component, for example, which is some of those pieces we've added, but yeah, we want to expand Flint well beyond chat to make it more interactive. So basically, I can't give too much of a sneak preview yet, Santiago, but like we're playing around with components like that. The challenge we're running into is like AI isn't great at reliably making stuff, but it can reliably understand things that students make. So maybe it can't draw on a whiteboard very well, but it can understand something that students draw on a whiteboard. So then the question we're asking ourselves is like, how do we let students easily draw on a whiteboard in Flint, which is a hint of some upcoming features we have. But yeah, I think if any of you have played with like brilliant.org, which I think has similar kind of interactive pieces to Wolfram, I think like definitely something we want to eventually add to Flint.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't share more. The engineers would get mad at us.
Yeah, it's all very much in development still. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this suggestion is cool. Once AI catches up, videos would help supplement hands-on activities like lab experiments. Yeah. Yeah, because I guess right now, like you can upload YouTube videos into Flint. But that's like very much you need that video already created. And I'm assuming you're thinking on the lines of like Flint creating videos.
Yeah, so that's correct. I'm a chemistry teacher, and just to give students, because oftentimes we only have one opportunity in the lab for a particular concept, whereas real scientists would spend weeks or months in the lab working on something. So if again, once the AI kind of gets to the point where you could say, oh, create a lab situation where the student spills part of their chemical or something like that, and then have the students analyze what happened in the lab to identify what that how that error affected their results. Again, I don't know how many years off in the future we're talking about there, but
yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think the video generation is looking more and more realistic at least, but even from like the image generation side, I think when it comes to like accuracy, image generation is still only if you use like a very specialized model to generate a very specific type of image is it really good. Yeah, so we'll see. I think as a team, we're pretty optimistic. And we're always like, I feel like Sohan lives on like X and all of the different platforms all the time to figure out what new models are coming out, what new testing different companies are doing. So from our perspective, like the industry is moving really quickly, and hopefully that will also help us bring things like this to life soon as well. But yeah, I guess specifically also to touch on like mock labs in Flint, we have seen some teachers do that in different science courses. Of course, like Sohan was saying earlier, it is like kind of limited to chat in a way. Sometimes you can also like have students upload their data, have Flint help them analyze it. But I've seen some examples of Flint like pretending to run a lab with the students, and it's all like theoretical in a way. So that could be something to explore. But yeah, I mean, if it were a video, that'd be super cool. Great. Yeah, thank you both for that. Yeah, from the teacher's perspective, we also wanted to get some feedback on what other information would be helpful for you to better understand the student performance. Yeah, so like for context, way back with initial Flint, there was just like strengths and weaknesses, and now we've kind of added like the evidence-based analytics as well, where you can see where in the transcript the student is showing a specific strength or area of improvement. But yeah, like I guess what other data points or what other information do you usually use to evaluate student understanding?
Yeah, and feel free to just unmute and talk. I know we're a relatively small group. I think some people at top offer classes.
Yeah, I think that seems a lot easier.
Yeah. Okay.
So the one thing that I learned that one of the new features is when you first start an activity, there's like kind of a multiple choice, that kind of gives the students direction, or gives them kind of like a starting point. And perhaps something like that at midway points in the activities. If the AI happen to recognize, the student seems to maybe need a nudge in a certain direction, and rather than just giving them, all right, these are the steps or something, letting the student select again from a multiple choice grouping.
Yeah, that's super cool. Nice.
I guess something also like a comparative performance, like how different people are doing in either the same session or in the same group, or like ways to tell like, oh, everybody was doing kind of not great on this activity, so you can even classify this activity as hard, right? And then people were doing pretty good on this one, so classify this activity as easy, and like so like you can get an idea of like, okay, if I'm going to ramp it up, how would I want to distribute these activities throughout the course, depending on what kind of thing do I want to give the students.
I use it as formative assessments in my class. And at the beginning, I used to give it at the end of the class, and then they would just press for time. I would always put time limit. Now I do it halfway through the class, and that just to give more time to think about it. It's still timed, 10, 15 minutes, depending on what we're doing. And then like next semester, I'm going to be more intentional. I will make sure those are going to be my entrance tickets or exit tickets pretty much every class, right? So I can actually monitor their performance kind of throughout the semester. Like, let's say I teach you macroeconomics, right? I can actually test every concept, by using that. That's my plan, yeah.
I like that. One thing we're thinking of is like, right now all the activities are siloed. So like it's hard to see, okay, how did the student improve, right? Over the course of the semester, you have to click on each student or click on each activity. We want to get to the point where you can easily analyze that data for a student across multiple activities.
Mm-hmm.
So that might look like a better view of the profile of the student. Right now, if you click the profile, it's just a list of information. Maybe we have some AI summary there. Or we're thinking of like letting you just ask Flint questions like, hey, how is Santiago, let's say one of my students, how is Santiago doing in math? Like, how has he improved in the last few months? So we're not there yet, but we want to give the AI long-term memory.
I like that. I like that us having conversation. Yeah. So this is going to be an observation conversation mark too, right? We actually use it towards, our marking scheme, those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I guess, are any of you all admin? Because my next question was admin specific, but if not, we can skip it.
Yep, I'm an admin.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I guess from like the administrator perspective, what other data would help you to understand like across the school, I guess, like how students and teachers are using it? Especially, we've gotten some questions around wanting to understand like which departments have adopted it super strongly and then which ones might want some like additional trainings or additional help. But yeah.
Right, so you're assuming I'm a hands-on admin person.
Or if you're not hands-on, I guess what would be helpful?
No, I mean, I think I get kind of a general idea of how the teachers are working, and I find the way that it's laid out right now, if I go in, I can see what teachers are using it, so it seems pretty clear to me. And again, I mean, I look at it more from the benefit of the teacher working with the student rather than me working with the teachers. I mean, I think if I need to find that information, I can find it, but the most clarity I want is with me working with my students.
Yeah, makes sense. Great. Awesome. That was actually my last question, but wanted to like open it up for any like remaining thoughts you all had or questions. Happy to chat in whatever direction you all want.
Try to add one just kind of logistical type of thing. And I don't know if you guys have heard, gotten feedback from this or not, but having the ability to maybe organize activities within a group. So rather than having all of the activities just laid out like 50 activities within one group or class, having folders that you can put them in, kind of subdirectories.
Yeah,
Right now you can create groups within a group, right?
You can technically use groups as folders, but it gets a bit weird, because then it'll say like once you create a group even inside of a bigger group, it'll say like 0 members.
Yeah.
And then you like share it. Yes, it's not ideal. Definitely like that suggestion, Tom. We're hearing it in an increasing amount. We've tentatively talked about adding it like over the summer, like this upcoming summer. So maybe ahead of next school year, but no promises just yet. We need to take a closer look at it. If we did, though, it'd be something similar to like Google Drive, where you just have a folder, you can just organize stuff easily in there.
Yeah. Are there any like examples of other edtech tools that you all use where you really like the folder system or the organization system? What do we use? No. It's okay if not.
Yeah.
We can build something new.
I guess I use Canvas, and like I teach a course online with Canvas, right? And I don't mind the layout, like how you can organize it kind of in sequence. That's all I can think about. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah. Awesome. Yeah. If there are no
Thanks for notifying us of all the new stuff you guys are, putting out there. Like I'm always in LinkedIn and I always watch videos Sohan, you post. So about the new things, I'm like, okay, good. Let's try it out. So I'm always willing to try new things, right? And kind of like, some things I will continue with, others will not. So
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we should have another one of those coming out early January. Yeah.
Awesome.
After the break. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Sohan records so many videos, but I'm glad you all are watching it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So I'll use it as my formative assessments instead of Google Form. I normally use Google Form, but now I'm going to be using Flint AI. I'm replacing all the Google Forms with Flint AI, and I'll let you know how it goes for the full semester for 3 of my courses: accounting, international business, and macroeconomics.
That's super cool. Nice. Yeah, for sure. Let us know. Yeah. I think I had like one more slide. But yeah, of course, if you all think of any questions, just let me know. But to wrap up, thank you for coming to our final session of the year. We have more sessions to come, specifically 2 in January that we've scheduled already. One is for specific to school admin. So we've got a lot of questions about like how are different schools like figuring out teacher adoption, how are they supporting teachers in trying Flint out. So there's that one. And then we'll have one for computer science afterwards. Sometimes the ones that we're doing are kind of arbitrary. So if there's any that you all want to see soon, just let us know and we can probably arrange something.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, guys. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Good New Year.
Bye.